Hello and welcome to the Hannah Hundel Show. I'm your host, Hannah Hundel, and the Hannah Hundel Show is brought to you from the studios of Harvard Radio Broadcasting. Here on the Hannah Hundel Show, we feature the world's foremost experts for groundbreaking discussion within their respective fields, spanning medicine, science, technology, business, politics, policy, law, and more. Join me, your host, Hannah Hundel, on a mission to unpack and understand how contemporary high-impact issues are being tackled by the world's most influential leaders. For today's episode, I'm honored to share part 2 of my sit-down interview with our esteemed guest, Bill Gates, for a conversation on Bill and Melinda Gates' 2019 annual letter. Mr. Gates is the co-founder of the Microsoft Corporation and the co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the world's largest private foundation with the mission of decreasing inequities with regard to education and healthcare and promoting responsible global development and growth. Each year, Bill and Melinda Gates release an annual letter reflecting on their humanitarian work of the past year and offering insight into where they'll be directing their energy and efforts for the upcoming year. The 2019 annual letter, titled "We Didn't See This Coming," is available in full on www.gatesletter.com and describes 9 things that most surprised Bill and Melinda this year. You've previously heard part 1 of Bill's and my conversation about these surprises, and I'm honored to share part 2 of our conversation now about the contents of the 2019 annual letter. On the topic of climate change, you write in the letter, quote, "I wish more people understood fully what it will take to stop climate change." What do you attribute that lack of full public consciousness on the topic to? Do you think it's a result of media kind of watering down the issue, or maybe the message getting lost in political partisanship? Why isn't the public fully aware?
Well, you definitely have the people who don't believe in climate change, but then you also have people who believe in it and therefore kind of gotten thinking, if we just get more renewables, this will get solved, and so we'll just argue for that. The actual pie chart that shows, okay, it's not just electricity, it's not just transport, the agriculture sector, the industrial sector are gigantic parts of this. We need to build the awareness of that. The terminology, all we need is clean energy. When you make steel or cement, that people don't think of that as energy. It really isn't. Or when you have cows that emit a lot of methane and are a meaningful part of the greenhouse gas emission. So we're going to have to build a more understanding of those sources, and particularly for the people who care about climate change, that the 25% that's electricity, and even there, the idea of how you get a reliable system that's working when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, even that is unsolved. So it's not as though the 25%, some people think, that's solved, just beat up utilities and tell them to buy renewables.
Right.
When, like Chicago right now is super cold, there's no energy source that's going to work, and yet you need now to keep people warm. You need that electricity. So it is too bad that it's more complex, and this idea of getting to zero in all these different areas, and not just in the rich countries, also in India and China and middle income countries. It's a daunting problem. Harvard actually has Professor David Keith is one of the people who's kept me knowledgeable, comes out many times here and educates me about the breadth of the problem. He's fantastic.
Yeah. There's kind of a movement among the progressives right now pushing for the Green New Deal and calling for a lot of what some people might consider drastic measures to reduce carbon emissions within the next 12 years or so. And I'm curious, do you have any kind of opinion on the Green New Deal more generally?
You cannot get rid of the sources of greenhouse gas emission in 12 years. we haven't solved the reliability problem, and we don't have solutions. We don't have a way to make steel, cement, beef, fertilizer, plastic. We don't have ways of making them that don't have greenhouse gas emissions. And we don't even have a way of keeping the electricity grid reliable in 12 years. So the best author on this, although his books tend to be long, is Václav Smil. So people, read Energy and Civilization, Energy Myths and Realities, Energy Transitions, just those three. They'll have a sense, hey, this is a pretty daunting problem. And it's that no amount of money can change this problem in the next 12 years. And the U.S., although, yes, we need to set an example, the U.S., as a percentage of greenhouse emissions, is small enough that, say the U.S. was willing to pay huge premium prices for steel and cement and beef, and so what?
If we act alone.
That's not even 20% is the U.S. When you turn to India and you say to them, hey, you're still providing the basics of refrigeration, air conditioning, heating to your 1.2 billion people. If you have to pay a premium price for electricity, then you're not getting air conditioning. You're not getting lighting for girls to read at night to stay in school.
Right.
And so the trade-off, they're not rich like we are. They're still dealing with those basics. So the world should use more energy on their behalf. You just have to innovate. And the time to actually invent things and make them scalable and roll them out is typically a 50-year time period in the physical scaled economy.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's not like if you just, carry your signs around, this thing can be solved in 12 years. I wish it was like that, but it's not. And that's partly why pushing for more research money is super important, and pushing for more risk capital, venture capital is super important. I think I give us a poor grade for educating the public about how difficult this is to solve. And a lot of people in the climate movement are saying, gosh, okay, that is super important. It's great that people care. I mean, they're camping out in offices and all that.
Right.
But, we need to direct that towards an actual solution.
Right. And I want to talk briefly about education too, because it's something you mentioned in the letter. And you write about Big History, a free digital course that you fund that's now in the curricula of 3,000 schools. What do you envision the full integration of digital learning tools looking like in classrooms? What would be a home run for you in terms of integrating digital learning?
Well, a student wants the course to be intriguing, and they want the problems they work on to be kind of at their level.
Right.
And if they're having difficulty, they want feedback very quickly. And you want to preserve the teacher time, which will still be super important for understanding, okay, this kid is bored by this subject. I got to talk about that. Or this kid's having a really difficult time with these concepts.
Right.
And so if the normal homework, you're getting the hints just right there as you're trying to solve it. And the teacher can see, okay, who put time in last night, who was able to solve it without the hints and who didn't. Then the sooner you're saying, okay, you missed this one algebraic manipulation thing, or if we could bring that even into the writing so that your feedback is, okay, you're missing, the parts of this paper we asked you to write. Anyway, we're trying to get the software to take some of these mundane things,
right,
and that immediate feedback, and have that, and that's essentially part of the curriculum. And so the teacher's not doing mechanical things like correcting grammar, saying you didn't have a setup sentence. That's been taken care of. They can deal with higher level type feedback. And people have been talking about computers improving education for a long time. For the broad set of students who are kind of wondering why they're taking courses, the computer hasn't done much. For the hyper-motivated who's up, doing hundreds of problems on Khan Academy every night and watching video courses from, the various open courseware things, that's great. And, that's people like myself or, kids who go to Harvard. But broadly, technology has not helped. But the promise is still there. When I see the latest curriculum for math that's slowly but surely getting out, it's hard to get schools to change. We haven't done as good a job making the comparison of the old curriculum to the new and show how superior the new is. We need to work on the evidence base to strengthen that. Right. Then the whole way purchasing gets done and training gets done. So it's slow, but it's a worthy cause. Yeah. We actually thought we would have progress first in our education work, and our global health work would take a long time. Yeah. It's been actually the opposite. Wow. But we're not giving up in any way on the innovation to help teachers do better.
Yeah, so you're not giving up. And to the question of whether you're optimistic for the future, you write in the letter that you definitely are. Today, between developing and developed countries, and even within developed countries, the inequities are there and they're still huge. Why are you confident that we can and will close them?
Well, actually, global equity is far, far better today than any time in history. That is, the lower income and middle income countries have been growing faster than the rich countries. So China is the exemplar there, where they had 700 million people in extreme poverty. Yeah. Now they have 42 million. So there are more resources to go around, and globally equity is stronger. Now it's on the agenda, definitely medical innovation, digital innovation, will give us more ability to do a better job on this. But people shouldn't think that the trends are super negative. In fact, if you think that things are really negative, you might say, okay, this way we have governments, let's try some radical thing, either in terms of economic management, taxation, or, just even not believing that democracy can work well. So the factual basis that, yes, we're now seeing these deficits in terms of equity, and people are very upset about that, which that's appropriate. But if they don't see the progress, then the idea of, okay, what are the good examples that we can learn from, they won't have that driving the strategy. So yes, I'm optimistic, but it worries me that other people aren't optimistic, and that might mislead them in terms of needing to do things in a radically different way.
That's a great point. And that was part 2 of my interview with Bill Gates, co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, discussing the contents of the 2019 annual letter penned by himself and Melinda Gates. Be sure to check out www.gatesletter.com to read the letter in full. Again, that's www.gatesletter.com. You have been listening to the Hannah Hundel Show, brought to you from the studios of Harvard Radio Broadcasting. I'm your host, Hannah Hundel, and I thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.